Hello, welcome back. Here's a reminder of the main stories on Al Jazeera. Bahrain's king has asked his crown prince to start national dialogue with all parties over the continuing unrest in the country. That's after security forces fired on crowds. There's been more violence during democracy demonstrations in Yemen. 6 people have now died, dozens more are injured. And at least 46 people have been killed by security forces in Libya over the past 3 days. That's according to the human rights group Amnesty International. Police in Afghanistan say 9 people are dead after a bomb blast in the eastern city of Khost. A further 30 people were injured in the attack carried out by a suicide bomber with a carload of explosives. Most of the victims were civilians. The Taliban has claimed responsibility. Well, 2 months after the death of Richard Holbrooke, Mark Grossman, a retired diplomat, is set to take over as the U.S. Special Envoy to Afghanistan and Pakistan. Grossman is expected to help manage Washington's often tense relations with the Afghan president Hamid Karzai. And ties with Pakistan have soured further following the arrest of a U.S. Embassy employee over the killing of 2 Pakistanis. Well, Kamal Haider is in the Swat Valley for us. He says Mark Grossman's appointment comes at a strained time for the 2 countries.
The United States has appointed Mark Grossman to be their man for Afghanistan, Pakistan. That replacement was much awaited after the death of Richard Holbrooke. Now, the new envoy will be taking charge at a time when relations between Islamabad and Washington are strained. The fact that the United States will also begin its withdrawal from Afghanistan. 2 of its senior generals are likely to be leaving this year from that theater. And the fact that the U.S. ambassador to Kabul, Eikenberry, is also due to leave. So the new envoy will have challenges awaiting him, a strained relationship with Pakistan that he has to mend if the United States is to seriously work on an exit strategy from Afghanistan.
The UN Security Council has failed to adopt a resolution condemning Israel's settlement building in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem.
Those against.
Well, the United States has voted against the resolution put forward by Palestinian leaders. It was defeated by a vote of 14-1. Instead, U.S. officials have reportedly offered to support a non-binding presidential statement that effectively rejects the legitimacy of Israel's settlements. Well, Al Jazeera's Kristen Salumi has been watching proceedings at the Security Council. She joins us now from the United Nations in New York. Kristen, it's no secret that the U.S. is opposed to the continued building on land of Israeli settlements on land that is considered illegally occupied. So why did they vote against this?
Well, the United States reiterated that position and said not to confuse their vote with support for continued settlement expansion in the Palestinian territories. On the contrary, Susan Rice, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, said that they are strongly opposed, but they did not feel that this was the right place or the right time to bring this resolution forward, that it would risk hardening both sides and hindering the Middle East peace process. Take a listen to what she had to say.
We hope that those who share our hopes for peace between a secure and sovereign Israel and Palestine will join us in redoubling our common efforts to encourage and support the resumption of direct negotiations. While we agree with our fellow council members, and indeed with the wider world, about the folly and illegitimacy of continued Israeli settlement activity, we think it unwise for this Council to attempt to resolve the core issues that divide Israelis and Palestinians. We therefore, regrettably, have opposed this draft resolution.
Kristen, very strong words there, the folly and illegitimacy of continued settlement expansion on Palestinian land. I guess the timing here couldn't have been worse, in the sense that the U.S. must be watching the events unfold in the Middle East. We've just seen the violence in Bahrain. Libya, of course, it comes after Egypt and Tunisia. And I guess they're a bit unsure about their sphere of influence. And I guess a lot of people at home, as in the American public, would probably not want the U.S. to act against Israel right now.
That is definitely the case. There's a lot of political pressure on the Obama administration. There was a lot of political pressure on the Obama administration not to support this resolution, coming from both Republicans and Democrats. The presidential elections are less than 2 years away. As you know, the Democrats' influence in Congress has been waning. With the last elections, it was considered political suicide to do anything but veto this resolution. But at the same time, of course, the administration is painfully aware of what's happening in the Middle East and how this is going to look in a part of the world where people are on the streets revolting against their own governments, not only because they're not paying attention to their needs as they see it, but also because their governments are more interested in supporting the United States position in a lot of ways. That's the perception. So clearly they were not happy to be in the position to make this vote, which goes against their own stated position on settlements, but they felt that they had little opportunity because of the situation at home. And in fact, they went through huge steps to try to prevent this from ever coming to a vote. That's what they were hoping. There was a lot of negotiations going on behind the scenes here at the United Nations. Ambassador Rice meeting with Arab delegates, making offers, offering alternative packages of things that they would do to support the process if this vote would not go forward. President Obama spoke to President Abbas for almost an hour yesterday, trying to convince him that this was the wrong move and even threatening that there would be repercussions if the vote went forward. But the Palestinians also feeling like they had their backs against the wall and needed to make a move now to show some strength.
Kristen Salumi with the latest there from the United Nations in New York. Thank you. Meanwhile, the British government has announced it will review a recent decision to sell arms to Bahrain. Reports suggest that weapons from Britain may have been used by Bahrain's army to crack down on protesters, and that's led the British Foreign Ministry to announce that it's reviewing its export licenses to the kingdom. Sonia Gallego has more.
Images that shocked a nation. Pictures of police in Bahrain violently suppressing peaceful protests drew condemnation from the West.
Across the Middle East, we call for the right to peaceful protest and, of course, effective economic development and more open and flexible political systems.
But no mention that some of the tear gas used in the Bahrain protests may have come from Britain. Calls for peace are far away from the gritty reality that is the weapons trade. Deals cut at arms fairs such as these are the norm, reaping billions of dollars for defense contractors. Across the Middle East, arms sales are a lucrative trade for the UK. As well as tear gas, they provided Bahrain with aircraft cannons and assault rifles. For Libya, projectile launchers and crowd-controlled ammunition